Okay, so anyone else been on one of those like travel nightmare flights recently?
I swear my last flight was delayed like 6 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 6 hours of like lukewarm airport coffee.
And just like wondering if I was ever gonna escape that airport.
I've been there.
Yeah, so like it kind of got me thinking about, what's next for air travel, right?
Yes.
Like what's the future hold? And turns out experts are predicting some pretty wild changes over the next like 20 years or so.
Yeah.
We're talking sustainability, like big time speed, and airports that are going to look like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie.
So basically,
Let's ditch those like a departure board blues and dive right into the future of flight right now.
let's do it.
All right, so first up is fuel.
Okay.
And you know those like tiny bags of pretzels they give you on planes?
Yeah.
Those might be the least eco-friendly thing on board before too long.
Yeah, that's right. Traditional jet fuel. It's headed for a makeover.
A serious makeover. We're on the verge of a major shift towards sustainable aviation fuels, and we're even talking about hydrogen.
Whoa.
Imagine that flights with a dramatically smaller carbon footprint.
So like no more guilt trips with my like frequent flyer miles?
Exactly.
That's huge.
Yeah.
But switching to entirely new fuel sources, that's got to be a pretty big challenge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's huge. It's like imagine trying to like swap out the engine of a car.
But the car's moving.
Oh, wow.
It's a really complex dance of technology, new infrastructure, and like global cooperation.
And there are companies like Zero Avia, they're actually pioneering hydrogen-powered engines right now.
Yeah.
Their goal is to have zero-emission flights within the next decade.
But the real question is,
Hey.
can we actually produce enough hydrogen to fuel the entire aviation industry?
Yeah,
That's the billion-dollar question.
it really is. And speaking of billion-dollar questions, remember that iconic scene in Back to the Future?
Which one?
You know, with the DeLorean, like, flying through the air?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so maybe not quite that cool.
But urban air mobility is something that is actually on the radar now.
Yeah, dish those traffic jams, and imagine this. You just hop into an electric aircraft.
And you just zip across the city in minutes.
Oh,
This isn't some like fantasy. It's the promise of urban air mobility.
we're talking about companies like Joby Aviation and Lilium who are developing these electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft.
Okay.
Essentially, they're like flying taxis designed for quick and quiet city hops.
Okay, now that does sound way cooler than like sitting in rush hour traffic.
But I gotta ask, what about safety?
Like flying over these really crowded cities just seems a little...
Cements.
No, it's a totally valid concern, for sure.
If you think about it, go back to like the early days of cars.
There were accidents, tons of skepticism,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
and it took a while to figure things out.
It's the same idea here. Urban air mobility is going to require some really stringent safety regulations, really robust air traffic management systems.
And I think perhaps most importantly, we have to build public trust.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about sustainability a little bit.
We've talked about like flying taxis.
Now let's talk about speed.
Oh, yeah.
We've all heard those rumors about supersonic flights making a comeback.
But like, is that just hype?
Not this time.
Oh.
Get ready because supersonic travel is about to get real.
For real?
For real.
We're talking about companies like Boom, Supersonic. They're designing these sleek, quieter jets.
The goal: slash transatlantic travel times in half.
Wow.
Imagine this.
Yeah.
Jetting from New York to London in under 4 hours.
That's faster than some of my pizza deliveries.
There you go.
That's amazing. Okay, but what about that like infamous sonic boom?
Right.
So that's the $1 million hurdle.
Supersonic flight over land is still a no-go because of all the noise regulations.
Makes sense.
Companies that are putting a ton of money into minimizing that sonic boom.
Really?
We're talking quieter engines, innovative aircraft designs,
It's a real technological tightrope walk.
but the potential payoff, huge.
I bet.
Okay, so we've talked about the air a lot. Let's bring this plane in for a landing.
And talk about what the airports of the future are going to look like.
Okay.
All right, so picture this. You walk into the airport, right?
Okay.
But instead of frantically searching for your boarding pass, like we all do,
Yeah,
your face is your ticket.
it's not that far off.
Is that really the future, or am I just watching too much Minority Report?
Honestly, you're closer to reality than you think.
Whoa.
Get ready for what I like to call frictionless travel.
Frictionless travel.
It's coming.
Biometric identification is already being tested in some airports.
Really?
Yep. And that could make check-in and security a breeze.
Imagine just like gliding through the airport with just a glance at a screen.
Your face is your boarding pass.
Wow.
But goes beyond that.
Okay.
We're talking personalized entertainment, real-time luggage tracking,
Okay.
even AI-powered assistants that guide you to your gate.
What?
The future airport experience is going to be all about personalized convenience.
That's wild. Okay, but it's not all about fancy gadgets and, face scanners, right? It all sounds incredibly efficient, but what about, those pilots up in the cockpit?
What happens to them in this kind of automated future?
That's a big question.
That's like the heart of the automation debate, right?
Hmm.
So some people are predicting a future where aircraft just fly themselves.
Oh, wow.
But others are saying, hold on a second, human oversight is still incredibly important,
Right.
especially if like something unexpected happens.
Of course.
So it's not really about replacing pilots entirely, but more about figuring out how to redefine their roles.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so it seems like the future of flight, it's like this crazy mix of sustainability, really cool technology,
Hmm.
and then these like bigger questions about ethics
Hmm.
and the role of humans in this like increasingly automated world.
It's a lot to think about.
It's a lot, enough to make your head spin faster than a supersonic jet.
I hear you.
But you're right, it all comes down to the decisions we make today.
We determine what our skies are going to look like in 20 years.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. Are we going to be looking up at a future of, sustainable innovation?
Or is it going to be a little bit more of a turbulent ride?
The power, as always, is in our hands.
And in our boarding passes, apparently.
That too.
But that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the future of flight.
We want to hear from you, though. What aspect of future flight has you, ready to grab your passport?
Or are there some things that have you, just wanting to stay grounded? Let us know.
Thanks for joining us.